Hey everyone, and welcome back.
Sustainable fashion or secondhand or mending.
I have a lot of questions for that.
Back in 2016-17,
That's wonderful. What was your early days content that you were making?
I think from the Minimalist documentary was like...
So how was that? Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of ZÁY SHEEN Webisodes, where sustainability meets style and real stories spark real change. I'm your host, Tafreed Butt, the founder of ZÁY SHEEN, a brand rooted in ethical elegance and conscious fashion. I'm incredibly excited to welcome our today's guest, Jenna Flood, a sustainability advocate, minimalist fashion educator, and a content creator since 2016. Welcome, Jenna, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
It's such a pleasure to have you on Zaishin Webisodes today. So, yeah, please introduce yourself to me and the other who is watching this.
Yes. So hi, my name is Jenna. I am from Melbourne, Australia now. Yeah, I've been doing content creation, talking about slow fashion since 2006 and 17. I guess I don't know, it's been so many years now that I've been in this little bubble of slow fashion and sustainability, minimalism, that sort of thing, that it kind of feels like second nature to me. And then when I step out of this bubble, I'm like, oh, people actually, do other things rather than just shop secondhand. But I like to think that, when I do a little slow fashion talk, that, it plants a little seed for somebody. And it doesn't mean they have to go, change their entire way of living, even if they just go shop a little bit secondhand, or maybe they get interested in mending. Just a little seed is what I like to plant. So yeah, I'll talk about slow fashion, minimalism, my cats, weird jokes, weird humor.
No,
Yeah, so I just like to help small businesses grow and shine a light on anything sort of sustainable fashion or secondhand or mending, rentings, clothing swaps, that sort of thing. Yeah.
no, that's incredible. I mean, the thing that you just have introduced about you and the things that you do, I have a lot of questions for that. So we're gonna go over within this particular time that we have. So I was just noticing you started in 2016 and now it's 2025. It's like almost 10 years you have been in this industry. So it's almost a decade of experience. So take us back. I'm going to start with this. Take us back in 2016. So what sparked you to start making content? And when you started, it was in the beginning as a slow fashion focused, or did you transit? I'm sorry. So how was that?
So back in 2016-17, I kind of get the years a bit muddled up. I'm just going off my fashion, my posts on my Instagram for remembering things. But basically, I was sort of working in retail. I was working for COS, which is owned by H&M, but I've worked for Cotton On and other fast fashion brands as well. And I was sort of always interested in clothing, growing up a teenage girl, I was interested in shopping, clothing, that sort of thing. I'd done a little bit of secondhand shopping, but it wasn't really something I was passionate about or anything. I was going to the big box stores back in Tasmania, part of Australia. We only had a few stores there, so things like JJ's, Kmart, sort of low cost retailers. So they're all mostly fast fashion. But basically, watched a documentary called The Minimalist, which was those two guys, Josh and someone else. I forgot his name. And they were talking about minimalism, and I don't know, it just clicked. I don't know what it was about that, but it just clicked. And I watched the documentary again, and I was like, okay, this is starting to make more sense. Then I watched it again, in the same day. I was like, wait, this just really makes sense to me. And I was looking around my apartment, and I was like, I have a lot of stuff, and it never felt it always felt like I had to keep collecting to be the cool person. Like I had to have this and I had to have this to be the cool person.
Right.
And back then also, social media was still quite new. People hadn't quite, I guess there was people out there making money from it, but it was still really new and people were finding their way around things like Instagram and Facebook and that sort of thing. There was heaps of bloggers around though, people were blogging way before social media about their lifestyle and fashion. So I always want to be one of those people. But yeah, minimalism sort of started it, and then it sort of rolled into sort of zero waste, and then having less, and having less clothing, I guess, and then veganism and vegetarianism. So just sort of rolled into that, and I was every time I discovered a new rabbit hole to go down, it just sort of clicked. I was like, all right, slow fashion, that makes sense. eating like, cleaner or less meat, or like, eating carefully, that makes sense. Having less things, that makes sense. Where does our stuff go? Where does it all come from? So I guess I just really taught myself all this sort of stuff, just from this one movie. And I just really like to explore rabbit holes, apparently. So it just sort of happened. I really have no idea. And then I started talking about it. And people, I sort of found these communities online, and people were talking about it as well. And people spoke back to me about slow fashion. They're like, well, have you heard of this person doing cool things? I'm like, no, I follow them or go meet them, all that sort of thing. So I guess it just grew organically from that, my passion from it.
I
I guess. Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. I mean, we all have a moment in our life when we get the spark that you talked about in the beginning. That, when it made us think that there is something that we should know, or it has to be that way. So the show that you mentioned, can you remember one thing from there that you thought about, or you think twice that, oh wow, they said something and it makes sense?
I think from the Minimalist documentary was like how they were sort of talking about how we're always consuming. Like we're always like, buy this thing and then you buy the next thing. Like you're always trying to keep up with somebody. And because social media was just starting, you were starting to see inside people's houses, or they were showing you what they bought, or like their collections of things. So you're like, oh, I should have that as well. To be a successful human, I should have all this sort of stuff. So
Right.
I think it was their message of like overall owning less, and like you actually don't really need that much. That really resonated with me and made me sort of think like I'd moved from one state to the next, and I dragged all this stuff with me, and I didn't even know what I had dragged with me. And then I was like, finding these random things that I had, and they had no meaning to me. So why did I have them? Like it just felt like it was a huge clutter on my head. So I guess like, the message of having less and consuming less really hit with me.
Yeah.
Um, I think that was the main thing that just started it all, to be honest.
So, do you have any background, like in your household, how things usually work? Like, have you seen your parents or your siblings or uncle, aunt, how you usually do about sustainability that also come with them to you? You think that's a very good thing?
Like sustainability in the history of my family.
Sustainability means like in daily life, you do something
Oh
which is
yeah.
sustainable, and we all come from a different backgrounds, and we do different things. So, what thing that you think that you were doing before even
Oh,
realizing that
before,
there's a
yeah.
term sustainability?
Well, my family wasn't really that sustainable, to be honest. Like we were alone, like, well, I guess there was different ways we were sustainable,
Okay.
but they're not ways that are echoed in my lifestyle now. But there was ways, like, to be a little bit graphic, we were a family of five that kind of lived in the middle of nowhere, and
Okay.
we had, like, my mum stayed home to look after us, and my dad went out and worked. But to be a little graphic, we did like, slaughter sheep at our property to feed our family, because that was the done thing back then.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't eat meat, so that's a bit of a weird thing. But that was the thing that was common around our area at that time, from a low cost family in the middle of Tasmania. So I guess that was a sustainable way, like, we were sourcing our own meat. That was a sustainable thing to do,
Of course.
as horrible as it sounds, it is. Maybe things like that. Oh no. Look, I think I feel like I'm lying, because I
There
feel
you
like
go.
as I'm
There
going
you
down
go.
this,
That's what I
like I'm
wanted to
going down
hear.
the rabbit hole, I'm thinking of more and more things. My
Okay.
mum used to make our clothing. She'd
Ah,
make little outfits for us, and then she'd also make clothing to sell as well. That was when we were a lot younger.
okay.
Yeah, my mum used to make our clothing, so she's a really good seamstress, and she'd make little matching outfits for myself and my sisters. So yeah, little things like that. I think they weren't like big ticket things,
Mm-hmm.
but they were just usually very small things, like making clothing, making your own meat, sort of thing. We had chickens, so we guess we had eggs and that sort of
Of
thing.
course.
Um, little things. But I
Yeah.
guess that's a good way to
No, of
go.
course, that's the thing. You're eating organic. It doesn't. We have to be, good inside and out for both. So of course, you're growing your own chicken or your own farming. I mean, I heard a lot of stories in Australia, people having a big lands or the backyard, so they grew up.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, the weather is good too, of some of the places, so it helps. No, not really.
Oh, it's well, in Tasmania where I grew up, it's a colder state, so
Okay.
it's like kind of near the bottom of Australia. So it's a
Okay.
colder state, so it rains a lot and it's a lot colder. But
Okay.
up towards the top is where there's it's a lot warmer. But I think we had like, average land, but here in Melbourne, I have no land whatsoever, so because it's in a city. But like if you're more in a rural setting, you have more land, so you've got the ability to have chickens and sheep and that sort of thing. Yeah.
I see. No, exactly that's what I was talking about. That we all come up with different backgrounds, and we have our own way for sustainable. I mean, we don't call it or we don't realize that it is sustainable, but when we see now that we were doing before, so we say, oh yes, even though we're not aware of this term, but still we were sustainable in these sense,
Correct.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. Makes so much sense. So
exactly.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy about that. One more question I'm gonna ask about your social media, because a lot of people who are listening to, or maybe they're gonna be starting, or even for myself. So when you starting making content, so um, what was your early days content that you were making, and
Oh.
and one viral thing that you had, and that clicked, or you got a lot of response from the people. So what was that?
Gosh. I mean, the first ever post I put on Instagram was a half-eaten chocolate rabbit. So it must have been around Easter. That wasn't for content creation though. That was just Instagram was fun at the start, it was just a hobby. I think maybe it was probably talking, I'm trying to think. Maybe like going op shopping and showing what I had bought. But also I think at the start for me, Instagram didn't have reels, didn't have videos, it was just a static picture. So most of the time it was just a picture of me wearing something. I do remember one of the first pieces of content creation was a necklace that I'd borrowed from someone, and I was showcasing the necklace. And then I remember when I also did this some styling work, it was just pictures of my styling work. So yeah, I guess my content creation didn't really start until sort of reels started kicking in a bit, and then we get a bit more creative.
Wow.
But I think it was just really simple, like flat lays, I guess was the start.
Right.
Going back a while now.
Yeah, so we can start as simple and we grow over time how we gonna make the content, and we can, analyze what's working or what's not. So I think
Yeah.
that's actually makes sense.
Yeah.
So the next thing that we're gonna move forward to is actually when we were having a call before this podcast, you mentioned that you have studied in styling and work in the industry. So what did you learn through that time period, or what is your experience from your lens about that?
So from being a stylist, studying styling, yeah. So I studied styling in I don't remember what year it was. Maybe it was about 2017, 2018, maybe a little bit later than that. So I studied with Australian Style Institute, which is a institute here in Melbourne, but they do online and have like you can study online and do it all over Australia as well. They have three courses you can do. Back when I was doing it, they had three courses, and I worked my way through all three. I think I did the master's course in like 2020 when we're all all in lockdown, which was fun. I think it was around about then. Yeah, so when I first started, I was working in fast fashion. So I was working at Cotton On, and I was just thought, like, it'd be fun to be a stylist. And so I did a bit of research, and I was like, if I've got the opportunity to do it now, why don't I try? Like, there's no harm in trying. So I did it, and I was like, oh, I kind of actually really like this. It's a lot of work, but it's actually quite fun. I quite enjoy getting that sort of picture in my head and creating the outfits and like working with a photographer and a makeup artist and a hairstylist and finding the location and creating that look, and like yeah, it made me really happy to do that, and it felt really creative, and working with a team and working with a group was really nice to communicate, which I think it was a skill that I got from retail, like always communicating with your team. So that was a lot of fun. I think I learned a lot of skills from studying styling, but it was also around that time that I was discovering slow fashion. So I think they went hand in hand, because that's when I started talking about fashion, but also talking about slow fashion.
Right.
And when we were studying styling, it was more about, what to put on your body. It wasn't where you should get it from ethically and where it goes after you finish with it.
Right.
So I sort of enjoyed thinking about those outsider sort of, I guess, topics that we weren't quite discussing in class. I think ASI now discusses them in class, which is a really big change for them, which is great. But we weren't talking about them at that very early point because there wasn't much chat around slow fashion back then. But yeah, it was really nice to sort of intertwine my two passions at the time and chat about them and see people reacting to them.
Right. So the institute that you went for the studying was in Tasmania, or it was
Oh,
somewhere else?
Melbourne.
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 I see.
Yeah, Melbourne. I moved to Melbourne by then.
I see.
So I moved to Melbourne in 2011, I'm going to say. So I've been in Melbourne for quite a while now.
So at that time when you were having and studying about fashion, did you heard about sustainability at that time, or do you see any students who has a I mean, they were inspired or they haven't mentioned about it, or I
Not
mean that was
really. There
really.
wasn't,
Yeah, I also believe that 2011 it was very early stages. I mean,
yeah,
also in US, as far I know, it just started like 20, 30 years ago when they started
yeah,
focusing more on sustainability. So I think
yeah.
it's gonna come, it take a long way to get in there. So you never heard anyone mentioning about it or having a
Not, I
concern.
mean, I guess with the rise of social media, you could connect easier, but like I hadn't really thought about it or seen people talking about it or seen it in any magazines or anything before I started looking into it.
Mm,
But it was there, like it was obviously there. It was just, I guess, when people thought of slow fashion back then or sustainable fashion, they probably thought it was a negative way. They thought it was like, hemp and big sacks and unattractive clothing.
right.
And op shopping was about, and obviously people went op shopping, but I think it was still a very much a poor person activity, which it definitely is not right now. Everyone else shops, but I think there's a negative perception, unfortunately, around that time
I see.
of slow fashion.
So even though you just said that because of the social media, we now connected, and which is true, of
Mm.
course. And but still, what do you see a biggest challenge right now that you think it's still having online, or people need to be more aware of about sustainability that we're not focusing
Well,
online?
there's a lot of greenwashing and a lot of misinformation out there. Like, sometimes I come across posts and they have no source of what they're like, they're claiming a fact, but there's no source, or the source is like, 30 years old. And it's like things have changed since then. Like, even the reliable source that I used to use in my presentations of, I think it was 7,000 tons of clothing goes to landfill every 10 seconds or whatever. That's probably much more now. And that was like, 5 years ago,
Right.
6 years ago or so. Like, it's misinformation and greenwashing is so big out there.
Wow. So I mean that that makes of course that makes sense, and I think the brands should be more transparent about where they're sourcing about the material if they claim to be
Mm.
sustainable. And I think even though I think sustainability is the only way right now to live, for the fashion brands, of course, we're the second most polluted industry in the world. So I think a lot of governments also pushing nowadays to the big companies to
Yes.
to be going the sustainable side. But yes, the thing is that most of the brands going for the greenwashing. So that's a big concern, and I actually didn't find any quiet answers like how they're gonna be preventing from greenwashing to stop the brands. But that's what the second part comes in. You have to be transparent
Yeah.
about the source and all that. So
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Greenwashing is a big one. It's hard to overcome as a consumer as well, or as someone who's interested in fashion, because you can't really just take a peek at what the brand is doing and see what they're producing or where they're getting their stuff from,
Of
because
course.
sometimes it's so closely guarded and hidden, and their sustainability reports or whatever report can sometimes take, like, it's very hard to read them sometimes if you don't know what you're looking for. So unfortunately, you have to sort of train yourself to see through greenwashing, which can be difficult at times and tiring at times. So I think we just all need to, when we see a quote or when we see something saying they're sustainable, we just need to second guess it and do more research.
Right. Exactly.
Unfortunately.
So we're gonna be coming again to your social media and your, of course, our past. What we're talking about is about secondhand clothing. So I know that that's your one of the favorite topics too. So please, the people, I'm sure a lot of people know about the secondhand clothing, but how the industry works or how it can support, in a sense of being sustainable and reusing and repurposing our clothes.
Yeah, that's a huge topic. I don't know if we can cover it in a small amount of time, but I can touch on what I know. My view of the secondhand industry is like I work in a consignment style store at the moment. So we buy and sell clothing on like a buy sell trade model. So if you bring in clothing and we like it, we pop a price on it and make you an offer of cash or store credit. The place in Melbourne that I work at is called Mutual Muse. So I've been there for 6 years. I have actually just resigned for another job, but I still enjoy this industry. I'm not going anywhere away from the slow fashion industry. It's just taking a step back from customer service industries. So yeah, with a secondhand model, I think that, it's fantastic. I want everyone to buy secondhand as much as they possibly can because we have so much out there and it keeps being produced. But I do think it's there's no way you can capture every single second every single piece of clothing that's made in the world. Like you can't capture in the secondhand model because the person uses it and they might throw it out, or they don't know where to dispose of it, so they just throw it out, or they dump it outside a op shop and then it gets thrown into the bin, or they break it and it goes to the bin. Like keeping things in a circular motion is actually quite hard if you aren't informed of where things to go, or there's not facilities in your area, or you just can't access those facilities for whatever reason. So I think it's good to have different models. So a consignment store is a really good model as well, but then you can also rent a rail. Like these are just the ones I know about and have experienced. You can rent a rail in like a store and sell your clothing on that. You can obviously take your clothing to the op shop. You can obviously give your clothing to a friend. I also host clothing swaps around Victoria. We are known as the Clothing Exchange. So we partner with local councils and we will hold a clothing swap for them, which are very, very popular. We have hundreds of people coming to these clothing swaps in Sydney and in Melbourne. So that's a good way to, like, you don't need to go to a clothing exchange event. You can do a clothing swap in your own family, in your own friendship group, in your own city, whatever. But I think that they're really popular because, yeah, they're usually free, but you can have a place to take your clothing and know you'll find good quality clothing in return. So
Right.
basically, with a clothing swap is you bring a set number of items of clothing, say 8 items of clothing. We have a little look at them to make sure they're okay and there's no, mega stains or rips or tears. And then we give you 8 tokens. And then we set up the shop for you, make it all pretty so it feels like you're shopping in a nice boutique. And then once our shopping session starts, then you can go and use those 8 tokens to buy some new pieces. So I
So
think that's a good way.
that's incredible, and I think that's a lot. That actually helps a lot to reduce the carbon. I mean, the waste, and of course, it's gonna be helping repurposing our clothes, or if we're having one, so we can reuse that. So, can you break down the process for me? So, make me understand how these things work. Like, if I have a bag of clothing, let's say about 5 pounds. I mean, in 5 kilograms. In Australia, it's kilograms, right? So, and I come to you and I have that much of clothing. So what is the next process?
So if you were to personally bring me a bag of clothing, I'd probably take your clothing and I would so I guess there's a few ways I would deal with that clothing, me personally. I would assess it. So if it's like totally ripped and stained and I can no longer, like it's not good for resale, it's not good for donation, I would either use it in my house to, clean things, or use it for rags or painting or that sort of thing. Again, like this is not Australia wide, this is probably my local area. So that's if your textiles are totally beyond repair, beyond anything. If your textiles are still good condition and just need a little bit mend, I would probably brands. I'd probably donate them to an op shop. Or I'd sometimes I actually put things on my front fence and people take them. If no one, someone's walking past and they see a great jacket, they'd probably take it. And as we call that hard rubbish here in Australia,
Oh,
so it's a good way to get rid of
okay.
things.
That's a unique word. I never heard of that.
I think it's kind of Australian thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love to know about the things, about other culture. So you mentioned three processes yet. First is gonna be using in a household as a recycling, using in
Mhm.
household. Let me just also type in because the next time I'm going to be with some other podcaster, I mean, on other podcasts, I'm going to be mentioning this because it's wonderful. The second is you mentioned is to be sending it to the recycling center, right? Sending to recycling center. The third, the last thing you said, it's going to be donated, right?
Yep, you could donate, hang them on your fence for someone else to take, or you could bring them to the clothing exchange, or you
Pack,
could donate them.
Right. Hashtag hard rubbish.
Hard rubbish.
And what's the next?
So if your textiles were in very good condition and very good brands for a resale company,
Okay.
I would take them to a consignment store. So you could take them to, just to mention a few in Australia, you could take them to Goodbyes, there's Mutual Muse. You could take them to a rent-a-rack place where you hire a rack. There's like Let's Take Two. There's Her Rack. There's many, many more. There's also some online where you can actually send a box of clothing to a company. I think it's called Swap Up. You can send them to a company and they will do the hard work for you and you take a commission. You just receive a little bit back and they take the commission. You can also sell them on Depop. And I don't know if we have Vinted here in Australia. I haven't looked into Vinted yet, but there's eBay. There's so many places you can sell your clothing if you want to go that way. You just got to do all the hard work. That's why consignment stores exist because they do all the hard work. So I guess that's sort of, and then of course you can give them to your friends and that sort of thing. I guess that's the way I would take a bag of clothing from you. At first, I'd assess it and see which sort of way I'd go. But a more creative person could upcycle it for themselves. I mean, there's so many ways to go once you think outside the box of those sort of things. But that's what I would personally do.
Yeah, I asked this process. The whole process is, of course, make me understand too, but because I see a lot of people online when I do my own research, they mention that, oh, it's very hard to to recycle our clothes, or it's very hard to be doing this and hard to be doing that. So, but the process that you mentioned is just pretty simple. Like you just
Yeah,
to the store, and now it's the store's headache to get it resolved. But you have to
yeah,
going to be at the right place. So I think
yeah,
that's
yeah. It's pretty simple,
right.
but
It's
it just depends.
complicated, yeah. If you want to do that, we
Yeah,
can.
it depends on your
I mean, in
where you live.
right in New York, I have seen that they, even though you don't have to go into the shop or anything, I mean, you can go, but you don't have to. We have a lot of big clothing donation boxes
Mm.
right across the streets or somewhere, near the malls. So whenever you go, you can just put your bag in there. Do you have guys in Australia too like this?
We do,
Okay.
but a lot of those bins, I don't know the companies. They seem a bit dubious, like they don't seem a good company. They also do cause problems where sometimes homeless people get inside the bins and then they
Oh,
can't get out of the bin. There's been a few issues I've heard.
wow.
So or people dump stuff outside the bins. I know there was some bins down the road from me and they had to remove them because people would just dump stuff outside the bins. Like if it was a clothing box, they'd put a TV next to it. So they would just dump like sometimes people really don't care and they would just dump rubbish outside the bin. So a lot of those bins have been removed or they're no longer used or I just don't know what the company is and I don't know where the clothing goes because I want to know where it goes. I don't want to pollute an overseas country with my secondhand trash.
Right. Now that makes sense. Also here, sometime I also when saw that first time, I also thought that I don't know how the company works or what
Mm,
their operations are, even though I'm donating. The next day
mm,
they just don't assess that and just throw it out in the landfill again. But the good thing is I have seen that they have mentioned their website, so maybe we can go and do some research. Yeah, it's just taking us like couple of minutes or more than 5 minutes,
exactly.
more than that, to be
Exactly.
mindful
Yeah.
what you do.
Yeah.
So
I
you,
find
yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. I
Yeah,
just another comment on those
go
bins. I
ahead, go
find those bins, like we have enough op shops like literally everywhere
ahead.
that
Okay.
like those bins kind of probably better. Like, I haven't really seen them in bigger areas. Like those bins kind of seem redundant because there's op shops everywhere. Like
Mhm.
here, like there's literally 4 or 5 op shops within walking distance from me in the inner city. So maybe they're more handy in places where there's less op shops, but for me personally, I'd probably take it to the op shop because they're so close to me. And op shops here also offer pick up
Right.
items as well. Yeah.
And of course, I think it's gonna be more believable, but when you see a real people standing next
Yeah.
to it, you're gonna be doing the shops. It gives you more kind of a, head free that, you can trust them, I believe.
Yeah. And
Right.
sometimes they give you a little discount when you donate. So it's nice to
Okay.
get the discount and then go shopping.
Right. So, you meet a lot of people like on daily basis whenever you're there. So, what are the myths or misconception you hear from people over there or online that people have regarding secondhand clothing?
I still think there's the perception that secondhand clothing is gross. I've had many people walk into the shop I work at and they're looking around and they're looking at their tags, and then they ask me like, "Is this secondhand?" I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Ew," and they walk out, and
Oh,
I'm
wow.
just like, "Oh, yeah." I'm just like, "This looks like a pretty good shop, I think." So
Oh,
there's still the misconception that op shopping is gross, and like sometimes you do come across pretty gross things, but that's everywhere. I've seen gross things in big box stores, so. I think, yeah, the misconception that it's still pretty gross is still rings true, I think, for me, for many people that I've met. I also think that
so
it's
what?
just gonna sound, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off, but I'm gonna want to ask a question regarding it. So why you think, I mean, if somebody says, "Ew, what's that about to the secondhand clothing?" Did you ever get a chance to ask them why they think like that? Or what's your assessment? What do you think? Why they think like that? Or the people?
I think I think they either have a conception that maybe was passed down to them from somewhere, like, maybe their parents thought that secondhand was shopping was gross or only for poor people, or maybe they get, there's the germ factor as well, like, someone has been in that clothing before, but like, honestly, like, when I worked in retail, so many people would touch the clothing that you were about to try on. It wasn't fresh on you. Before we even put it on the rail, hundreds of hands have touched your clothing. So I
Even though
don't really.
we have like changing rooms, so people are actually trying the clothes that we're buying.
Yeah, and like even before it gets to the change room, before we put it on the rail, people have made the clothing. So, and it's come shipped from across many oceans, and the textiles came from somewhere. So it's not like it's entirely made by machines. So I don't know. I think it's just a misconception that has been passed down by some people, and then also secondhand clothing. Someone could have died in it. So I think people get a bit caught up on that.
Uh,
I don't care, but
okay,
I don't know.
what's the other thing you were telling me? I'm so sorry. I just
Oh gosh, what was I saying? Oh yes, I think this is a kind of a weird thing to say, but some people think that secondhand clothing is extremely sustainable, but sometimes it's just not. And
okay.
I think what
Understand.
I mean, so what I mean in that way is that there's still overconsumption with secondhand clothing. Secondhand clothing doesn't always go to be recycled or be reused. Like, we have the issue of clothing and textiles being dumped overseas. And also, I just think like some people think that like when they take their clothing to the op shop, that magical fairies will fix all the stains and the rips and the missing buttons. But op shops are shops. They have to make a profit, otherwise they wouldn't exist. So when you take your bag of clothing to the op shop and there's a few things in there that are ripped or torn, that goes straight in the bin. It doesn't magically get fixed. In most op shops, the bigger ones, there might be like, some really cool nanas fixing the other ones in the smaller op shops. But like I think again, as we were talking before, some people don't do the research and they don't want to look further than beyond the curtain. So I do think with secondhand shopping, some people think it's the most sustainable solution. That's why they just dump their clothing at the op shop. But no one's going to fix the missing button, and no one has time to dye the item a different color. And if it's the zip, like I've seen it for myself. Like I've picked up a piece when I was volunteering at Salvation Army. I picked up a piece of clothing that I was about to put online, and it had a big hole in it. And she's like, "Oh, yep, that's fine." She took it off the hanger and put it in the bin. She doesn't have time to fix it. It's a shop. She's busy. She's the manager. There'd be a pile of clothing hanging in the corner waiting for someone to fix it. But they have to, pay someone to fix it. And then it eats into all the other profits because it's a shop. And it's the same with Mutual Muse. It's the same with Goodbyes. It's the same with any shop. A smaller shop has time to care and look after it. But bigger shops just don't sometimes. And that's the reality of it. So I think overconsumption, thinking that the magical fairy is going to fix everything behind the scenes, and of course, op shops being gross and full of dead people clothes. I feel just a few of the things with secondhand shopping that I find people have misconceptions about or believe. Yeah.
That's actually the true insight that you just gave me. Actually have a questions here that I'll probably gonna be asking you. So what it actually behind the scenes, and you just told me like about the big shops. I'm sure. I'm hope actually not everyone do that, but we can at least try the best we could do to make sure that we're not throwing, or at least we can send it to the recycling department instead of throwing it to the garbage. I would say
Mm.
not just the
I
clothing, but
try and save. I
and
try and save things from work to take to the recycling, but like it does cost to recycle clothing. Like, it's usually not free. So, it's coming out of someone's pocket. And if it's a small business, sometimes it's just too expensive. Like that's like the textile recycling company has to charge so they can keep going. but then the shop can't, like the shop needs to exist so people can bring their secondhand clothing in. It's like a giant vicious cycle. Someone has to be paid. We can't do everything for free in this economy anyway. Yeah.
Exactly. So you also talk about minimalism as a mindset. Also, the people who thinks like this way, what do you think? Can you explain what it looks like, or how can they get better, or how they should see the things as it's supposed to be if they're doing the job?
Yeah. I think with minimalism it is tricky because again, social media, and I don't mean social media is the bad thing and everything. It's good, like it's connected me to you, so it's really good, but you know, it showcases like if you're on TikTok, have you seen those TikTok videos where like people just have like cupboards full of like bath and body lotions or whatever, or they have like a wall full of razors? Like no one needs a wall full of razors unless maybe you're like a werewolf or something. I don't know. Like it's overconsumption is ginormous. It's everything that happens, and it's so easy to jump out and buy absolutely anything, especially with Amazon nowadays. Like you can just get anything ASAP. So I think minimalism is really taking a step back and thinking, okay, do I actually need this? Do I actually need that? And also I think again it ties back to sustainability because you're actually like, do I actually know where that comes from? And what will I do with it when I'm finished with it? Like, if I want to buy some skincare, like, where'd the skincare come from? Who made the skincare? Do I actually need the skincare? Am I running low on moisturizer? Okay, when I finish the moisturizer, where do I put the bottle? Like, is it easy recycling, curb recycling? Like, that's such a long thought process for moisturizer,
It
but it
is.
helps me.
It's actually not. I mean, if you sit down and think about it, I don't think it's gonna be taking more than 5, 10 minutes of you to think the whole process, how you're gonna use it, how you're gonna recycle it, and all that. But now people, as you also mentioned, social media, and I believe and that's a big part of it. Everything is so fast, and we actually do not care to think about these things. I mean, we think as a waste of time, or even we do not need a thing. Even if the beauty care, they just going into the garbage. So we have to be mindful. We have to be slow. Because even though anything that is which is fast is not good for us, like fast food, fast fashion, fast. I also call the social media as a fast fashion platforms, all of them. So even though everything and now the shorts, the reels, the TikToks, and I mean it's just ruining our mental health. And of course, we're not doing anything, so definitely our physical health too. So I think we have to be more conscious. It's not just
Yeah,
about doing the recycling. It's about healing yourself too and your soul, because we,
yeah,
as a human, we have to think about the things using our own mind cells,
yes,
because it's also about the mental health. That's the main thing. So, as
yes,
for inside and outside, both.
yeah.
So,
I think like when you consume too much, for me, it just like if I have a whole, I don't know, cupboard full of moisturizing creams, like one, they're going to expire pretty soon. They don't last forever. And also like it really hangs on my head and plays in my mind, like, I have so much stuff and I just want to get rid of it all. Like I just want to throw it all out, but I don't want to do that because, that's not great. But like when you like mindlessly buy things and you're just stuffing it in your cupboard, like whatever it is, it could be anything. I don't know whether it's just a me thing or not, but it just like hangs over my head. Like it makes me feel like my house is slowly building full of stuff. And then one day it's just going to explode. Like, so if I only allow the things that I want and I need and I love in my house, then it's a place of calm. I can be slow here and take my time because my house is not, filled to the brim with like, stuff on the ground and like all that sort of thing. So that's how it feels like for me when there's too much stuff.
of course, that makes truly sense. So, one tip that you want to give to me that I should use to be more sustainable and be more ethical, or have a slow wardrobe in my that I could use for my daily use every day.
I think I think it's gonna be two tips, to be honest. So I think I think the first one is step back. Like, if you see something in the wherever, take a step back. Like, okay, what is the item? Do I actually really need it? Like, if they've got 6 white t-shirts, do you need a seventh white t-shirt? If you always wear white t-shirts, then maybe that's okay. Go for it. And then the other tip is to sort of research where it came from. So if you see this great white t-shirt, but then you notice you're shopping at Zara, like where did that white t-shirt come from to get there? And I'm not, if you want to shop at Zara, that's fine, but just don't do it every weekend. Like if you buy the one white top from Zara and you wear it 50 years down the track or however long it lasts, and you care for it and you mend it and you let it go, to textile recycling, or you use it as rag when it's finished. If you love that garment through its entire life cycle, then buy another one. I think that's okay. It doesn't really matter where you shop because I can't dictate where people shop because, it's expensive nowadays. But I think, yeah, one, take a step back, and then two, do research from the start of the life cycle of the garment, how you use the garment, and then its end, like what will you do with it? I think that's my two main things. If you can take anything away from this little podcast, I think that's a good consideration.
No, but I think the two things that you just mentioned, it covers everything. Like, first of all, if do not buy and think about it if you really need it. That's the
Yeah,
first thing. And if you consider to buy it and you need it, and then think before you buy that how you're gonna be using it and how it's gonna be ending.
yeah,
That's actually
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
That's
just everything.
that's so simple. I mean,
Yeah,
just
like from a loaf of bread to your wardrobe, I think it works.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's the two simple steps
yeah,
that think before we buying a clothes. So
yeah.
even though the next thing I'll be about the mentioning about the brand that I started, the ZÁY SHEEN. The whole concept of that starting, I mean, now when I started it wasn't so sustainable because I wasn't aware about this term of sustainability, but when I learned and I thought, no, this is the only way to be, to live or to have. It's a sustainable and ethical way to so we can support both our planet and the people, of course, who are working hard for it.
Mm,
So even though I own the brand, I tell people whenever I need them or we talk about it, I say, please, I own the brand. Thank you for your support. I mean, if you want to do that, let's please do not buy from me too. Whenever you're considering buy, please go back, take your wardrobe out, open the door, open the closet, see whatever you have. Because
mm,
everything that you need is already in your closet.
yes.
But if you want it, I mean, need it actually, not want it, not feel like, but you need it, then consider to going to sustainable and ethical brands. So
Yes.
you can support the people and the planet too. So being conscious. So these
Yes.
are the two steps I also tell people. Plus, do not buy, even from me. The second option is be going to be sustainable and ethical. And now I'm gonna be third thing that I'm gonna be adding is this: whenever you're buying, even from me or anyone else, consider how you're gonna be using it and how it's gonna be ending.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's good to think like that because everything we buy comes from somewhere, and everything when we finish with it goes somewhere. Unless, like, it's the loaf of bread, then you ate it. But, like things that aren't edible or put on your face or whatever, like, the container it comes in, the t-shirt, the cotton comes from somewhere, but it has to go somewhere as well. It doesn't just disappear. Like, it disappears from our house, but it doesn't disappear in nature. And I don't want to harm nature. I don't want to harm people. I want those things to live on past me. And I know it's such a small thing that, like, not buying something is such a small thing, but it has a huge impact on, one, our wallet, two, our house or the area we live in, but three, it has a huge impact on the planet as well. It's really simple sometimes.
I also love the fact when you said it's disappearing from our house, but not from the nature.
Still
It
there.
is thing that we're throwing out. It's gonna be harming somebody somewhere else. Like a lot of clothing that donated in the third world countries or like Africa. I had one of the guests in the past from Africa. He was from Ghana. He was actually telling me that it affects and people are actually dying because
Yeah.
of fast fashion. We
Yes.
talk about it, and over there, people are actually dying because of it, and because of the overconsumption, because of the overproduction, because of the waste that we're throwing to the landfills. It's
Yeah.
affecting not us, but there is somebody. But if we're not gonna be stopping here, then one day it's gonna be affecting us too. Even right now, it still does, but not in a big way, big such way, but it's gonna be. I think
Yeah, I think we just need to look behind the curtain. And like when I talk about things like, slavery and fast fashion and, people making fast fashion and not, all the harms that are going to them, it doesn't just happen in, countries like India, Bangladesh, those sort of places. It happens in Australia too. I've heard tales of it. It happens in the UK. It happens everywhere. Like it's not just one singular country. Like we can't just push and think, oh, it doesn't happen here, which I feel like is a really big mindset in Australia. It doesn't happen here. It does. I've talked to people who have experienced modern slavery in fashion industry and in like retail industries as well. Like I've spoken to people who were not born in Australia, have traveled to Australia for a new life. And they are being underpaid at working at 7-Eleven or whatever. Like, that's modern slavery still, not being paid a fair wage, things like that. And it happens worldwide. So if we just take a little peek behind the curtain and
right.
see what the fast fashion t-shirt does, or see what, whatever, how people actually get apples, or, apples just don't pop up in the supermarket automatically. They're picked by a human, then they go through a factory line, all that jazz. You know, take a little peek behind the curtain, see how your things really get to you, understand that process, understand how the fabric is grown, how the apples are grown, how they get to you, and then what happens when they leave your house. You will start to question everything in a good way, I think. And you, like, I guess also for your mindset, if you start to question everything, you might just curl up in a ball and cry. You got to choose your battles here, all right? And I've chosen fast fashion. But, when you start to take a peek behind that curtain, you'll realize what the effort and the humanity and the you know, production is put into these items. Like the cotton has to be grown, watered, traveled across continents. Like it doesn't just pop up in the shop. Like when you take a peek behind the curtain, you'll start to realize, you'll start to question, and then you'll be like, okay, yeah, I don't really need 6,000 t-shirts in my wardrobe. I can live with just two. So, you'll be able to save money for a really cool trip somewhere, or you'll be able to buy organic food, or what matters most to you. Like, you know, you'll find that you'll save money. It's a really weird thing to come out of sustainability, but buy less, save money, eat better, or travel better, or whatever.
Yeah, that is actually true. You don't have to be looking it so narrow. You have to look at it as a broader picture. Like it's a whole thing, it's a whole process, and you can make it out of it, you know. You have to
Yeah,
be a little bit more conscious so you can save yourself, your health, and your money. So you're
yeah,
not going NEV to the fast fashion shop and buying new clothing, and then the after first or second wash is just ripped, and you're not able to
yeah.
wear it again, and then throwing it out and repeating the whole cycle again.
Yeah, go on a hike. Don't go to the fast fashion shop. Go on a hike. Touch some grass for goodness sake. You know? Don't touch grass enough. I need more grass in my life. Like, yeah, just I think we just need, as weird as it sounds, just go back in time a little bit before we had all this technology to
Right.
keep the good bits, to get rid of the bad bits. But just we just need to sort of recenter and refocus and really figure out what we want to do, rather than be driven by this overconsumption world that is happening right now. You know, I love shopping as much as the next person, but honestly, for me right now, I don't even go shopping because it's too overwhelming. There's too much there. So I'm just taking a step back. And also, like, I have less clothes to wash. It's really nice. I don't have to wash my clothes all the time because I don't have many. I wear the same thing. So like
Oh,
there's so many ways you can play and be sustainable in fashion, but also, experiment. There's renting and all that sort of thing as well, which we haven't even touched on. That's a huge world as well. But I think we need to look at slow fashion and sustainability as a whole, as not a burden, but something we can experience and really hone in on our values. Yeah.
no, that is actually true. I totally agree with that. Thank you so much for your insights. We're about to be getting to the closing section soon, and also about to be near our time. I appreciate that. So we can just move forward. The last thing and the last section that we have on this podcast and this webisode is about what I'm going to be asking your insights again. What shifts do you see in fashion industry over the next years?
Oh, yeah, I think there's many. I'm really excited about like alternative materials, like, alternatives to leather. There's things being made from fruit. There's like fruit offcuts. There's things being made from, things that aren't like plastic. So, when you think of veganism, it's usually vegan leather, which is plastic most of the time, but also has a huge environmental footprint. So there's, so many different different types of alternatives happening out there. There's alternatives to feathers even, like, denim cut in a different way. Like collective fashion justice here in Australia is doing some amazing things in this sector. My friend Emma runs that organization, and they like the things she finds, I'm just astounded. She blows my mind. Like she traveled to I think it was part of the Amazon jungle somewhere and found people making like this sort of a rubber sort of fabric, and then she found someone close by who makes it into a jacket, like, and like supporting this small community. It blew my mind. You just have to follow Collective Fashion Justice, all right? They're amazing. I think other things that, France just had the fast fashion ban. I think they're doing a fast fashion ban. So things like that. And I think people just getting excited about this sector as well, and that they are like, putting their values to it, and like, creating different things and thinking outside the box, and using, like, there's a guy in Melbourne as well, called Into Carry, and he makes bags out of plastic, like chip packets and stuff. He like irons it and then creates really cool bags, like using waste as a resource. I get really excited about as well. Like just like tiny little things like that, I think really build up. And like, if you're carrying a bag that's made out of like old bonsai boxes, that's really a conversation starter and that sort of thing. So I think, yeah, materials, innovation, creating, using natural fibers, but sort of, going in more of a vegan way. People getting excited about secondhand fashion, reusing waste, that sort of thing. I mean, there's so much more I could talk about, but I think they're my main ones.
There's a lot of things that's happening in this industry. Like, if you talk about like 15, even if 15, 20 years ago wasn't so much, even like 7, 8 years ago wasn't so much.
Mm.
Now people are more aware and people are actually working on it. Like it's a very booming industry right now in US here. Are actually getting degrees in this sustainable industry and having a full-time job,
Yes.
make a living out of it. So definitely, if it has potential, and of course, it's gonna be, I think, in the future, more more people gonna be aware, and that's actually the whole point of this podcast too, because people like you or the other guests that we have before have so much insights because of your experiences, and you guys are a first one in this industry, or the one of the first ones, and it will it will be a great opportunity to speak with you guys and get your insights so we can learn what you have already done in your industry or whatever the practices are already exist in our industry. So maybe we can get an ideas or maybe we can
Mm.
start moving forward from there so we don't have to build everything from scratch and people can
Yes. Yeah.
from there of it what's happening and get more conscious or get more education regarding this. That's the whole point.
Yeah. 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 Just talk to people, see what they're doing, you know. I think it's simple as that, because, how else are you going to find out things if you just sit in the corner and not do anything? Like talking, reading, podcasts, just dive down your special subject and get really weird about it is my tip.
So, what advice would you give to emerging creators that are coming up, founders and everyday consumers who are just getting started?
I think just research is my biggest tip. Like that's how I got where am now. Just research and just being really weird about it. Like, this is what I love to think about. This is what I love to talk about. I'm lucky enough to express it with, a whole world of people. But I think also find like your sort of niche. You don't have to approach slow fashion as a whole. You could just really like, styling, or you could really like mending. Like, find your little niche and experiment with that. And then sort of, you can always, I think they all bleed into each other as well. Like, styling can become mending and mending can become styling. Like, you don't need to be restricted by things. I think just talk about it. Like, don't be held back. Like, often I get in my head and be like, oh, my content's not cool enough. Like, I don't post enough. But also, like, so what? Just talk about it. I think is the main thing. Get it out there. Start a podcast, just do it. That's all I did. I just started talking about it and people resonated. Lucky
The
enough to have them. Yeah.
point is to take actions
Yeah.
towards it.
Take action.
Exactly. If you think about it and you have some spark once you get it, so think about it and do some actions, do some your own research because
Yes.
you're gonna be learning more by doing your own research. That's how I learned, and that's how I'm still going in anything, not just sustainability, but any part of my life. You have to be learn a skill or learn about more stuff in it so you can be more, educated about
Yeah.
it. So what
Yeah.
next for you? And what's your message or advice for the people in 2020 and 26? Now it's coming.
Oh my God. Oh my God, next year, let's not think about that.
Okay.
I'm not sure really. I'm excited to grow with the clothing exchange. I really enjoy hosting the clothing exchange here in Melbourne. And I think personally, I just want to share more of my journey with sustainability. As you know, lame as that sounds, I just want to talk about it and help people just plant that little seed. I'm doing a lot of talks at the moment. I've got some things coming up with Ethical Clothing Australia, which is another great organization. There's lots of startups that are sort of popping up into my inbox, wanting to collaborate. So I think just planting that little seed with people is what I want to do, and then they can find their niche from that. They don't have to go full blown sustainability like I did and go crazy. They can just, do the mending, do the styling, do the upcycling, whatever, find their little bit and research. But I think, for me in the future, I'm gonna step away a little bit from sustainability fashion wise and focus on finding my career. And it'll still be in sustainability, don't worry, not going fast fashion holes. So I think I'm just stepping back a little bit, finding maybe doing a bit more sort of education for myself, studying for myself, still talking about these subjects, but I think I just need to um, step away to refine my center and then get back into it and keep sharing this message because that's what I want to do.
Beautiful. Yeah, lastly, any message you want to give to the people and and anything you want to say out or you think that, the world should be hearing or should know about this thing.
I think just if you have, I think with sustainability, people get caught up and think that, I have to buy this thing to be sustainable. I have to buy that thing to be sustainable. You don't. As we discussed before, it's all in your wardrobe. It's probably in your house. Like when COVID happened and we're all locked down, like Melbourne had one of the strictest lockdown laws in Australia. So we couldn't like leave the house apart from an hour. I couldn't go shopping as I was so doing back then. So I had to find things to do. I couldn't work at that point. So I'd like rummage around my house and being like, oh, I could use this to tie the plant back. I don't really have to go buy, a whole special thing to tie this plant to a stake. Or I can use this, or I can do like just the other day, we have like a big cat net out the back. And I just used found objects from around the house to mend the cat net so the cats can't get out the hole. Like, so just thinking outside the box and being like, I don't need to buy it. I can find it in my house. So I think just take a step back, think about what you have. There might be something you need to buy. Like if your washing machine is dying, it's going to be really hard to wash all your clothes in the sink. So, buy a washing machine. But like if you're, wanting to buy some knitting needles or whatever to start knitting, instead of rushing out and buying that set off Amazon or whatever, maybe look at your up shop or maybe ask a friend and then you can have a little knitting session and have a little chat while they teach you how to knit or something, create a community and connection rather than going to the store or clicking buy now, I think is something that I just like more people to do.
Wow, that's wonderful insights. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciated this conversation that we just had for about an hour or over a little bit now. It's such a gift, being honest. So your passion and your experience in this, it's such a wonderful insights, as I said before. And yeah, I think we can learn a lot of from it, and we can be conscious even when we are donating clothes. We have to be
Mm,
conscious. It's not just we donated the clothes and that's it. We should go one step further to see the organization that we are working with or we are donating the clothes to are working fairly too with their people and they're doing the right thing with the government instead of throwing that out from the back door.
exactly.
Thank you so much again. Lastly, you can let the people know where to find you and they can get so they can connect.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to chat to you about my favorite subject. But you can find me on Instagram as Ironic Minimalist. I also have a website under the same name, and I sometimes do a little bit of writing on my Substack, which is linked in the bio of my Instagram. And if you're in Melbourne, you can find me in Melbourne somewhere.
Oh yeah, definitely. You as I said, my friends live there, so hopefully maybe next within the next few years I might go there. So we'll see what we.
Yes, let me know.
Yeah, I will. So thank you so much to you
Thank you.
guys too for listening to this. And yes, it's been a great insights. And I'll see you with the next podcast. Take care. Bye bye. Okay. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Jenna, again. So that was
Thank you.
incredibly beautiful. And of course, again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I really enjoying talking to you. I mean, I still wanted to go more. There are still a lot of things, but I appreciate your time too. It's been late over there, so I don't want to keep you bothered. And
Oh, I could have talked all night, trust me.
I would I would love to connect with you again. It was so comfortable to asking you questions, and you were asking, answering really nicely. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me chat. It's been really nice to connect with someone in a different country because most of the people I do see are Melbourne or Australia. And I hope the sun isn't burning your face. You look very
It's
hot.
fine. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I've been praying for this moment for the whole life. I mean, it's past 6 months. Yesterday was the first day officially in New York City as a summer because
Oh,
getting for winter's like 8 months. We started
it was
like,
literally just the shortest day here in Melbourne, in
unreal,
Australia. So it's
unreal.
going to get colder from now on, and then it'll get warmer in September, hopefully. But yeah, we're heading into the cold, cold.
Not so long, just for 3 months. I mean, 3, 4 months. That's it.
It doesn't instantly get hotter. It sort of stays cold for a bit. And then when we reach like November, December, then the temperatures skyrocket and
Okay.
we go for like 40-degree days for a bit. And then March, we sort of cool down a little bit and then gets colder up until June, which is officially winter. But because we have so many Aboriginal First Nations tribes around in Australia, there's actually a whole different calendar according to each of those tribes, well, not tribes, nations, and that actually works. If you like look it up, it's really interesting. But like basically, for this area of Melbourne, there's certain different sort of instead of spring, summer, winter, there's like little like middle of spring, and then in winter in the certain bit between June and July or whatever, that's when the wombats will do something, and it'll be more like beneficial to eat this certain fruit for that's native to Australia. Like anyway, that's a whole other topic, and it's really interesting.
Wow. No, we're gonna be talking about that next time. So yeah, thank you again. Enjoy your coffee. I think it's finished just now. So,
Yeah, it was a green tea, but it's all gone
right.
now. It was beautiful. But
Okay.
thank you. I really appreciated chatting to you. I really enjoyed it.
Such a
I
pleasure.
hope that, you can get something useful out of this podcast and
Of
it's not just
course.
me
I
spewing my thoughts. But yeah, it's been really nice to chat to you. And I hope we stay connected.
definitely. You too. Have a good night, and I'll see you next time. We are actually on Instagram, so we're connected anytime, any I could help or you want to reach out. I'm always open. Just a DM or just an email away. So yeah, let me know. I'll see you
Yeah,
later.
let me know if you come to Australia as well.
I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Enjoy the rest of your day and go inside. Don't get sunburned.
Yes, I will. Bye.
Okay. See ya. Bye.
Wow, that was beautiful. I mean, it was such an incredible talk with Jenna. I mean, I really enjoyed all of my podcasts, but this one also was a special one. It was so comfortable talking to them, even on the during the podcast and behind the scenes when we spoke before. Even right now, if you could see that. Yeah. Then enjoy your day, whoever listening to this, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.